So I posted a painting of myself online and someone called me a narcissist. Just straight up narcissist. That was the whole comment. And honestly, it made me stop and think. Like, are self-portraits actually inherently narcissistic? Or is there maybe something deeper there? Now, for context, my online presence, for the most part, has been quite small. But one day, I posted a reel of me essentially painting a portrait of myself on Instagram. I wasn't expecting much, as my videos normally just get an average amount of views, but to my surprise, this video got around, I think it was 200,000 views, and I was so happy. But with a large amount of views, there's bound to be differing opinions, and there was one comment that very much stood out to me. I got a comment from a random stranger calling me a narcissist for making a self-portrait. And through that, I also got a couple more comments from other people saying that as well and kind of backing him up. And I know in terms of hate comments, this is pretty tame, but the people pleaser in me crumbled just a little bit as I overthought the idea. Wait, does this painting really come across as narcissistic to people? Is there something wrong with painting myself? I think with any hate comment you get, it's gonna affect you in some way, even if it isn't based in truth. It didn't take long for me to get over it and reassure myself that this commenter doesn't know anything about me and who I am or what my paintings even mean. But for the sake of argument, let's say we were gonna go with this guy's logic. Why would a painting of myself be all that different from taking a selfie in my best angle with the best lighting, filters on, and taking that photo and posting it to Instagram for the whole world to see? Couldn't that be deemed the same? Now here's the real kicker, which might surprise you, or maybe not. I went to look at this dude's profile. This dude was literally a portrait photographer. Now to his logic, wouldn't he and his photos be the same? All jokes aside, this comment got me thinking. To take you even farther back, when I was in middle school, around 12 or 13 years old, I remember I used to hate looking in the mirror. I hated the way that I looked. I had a mirror closet at the time, and every time I would walk by it, I would get so emotional, and I would just cry and basically just lay on the floor wishing I was someone else. As a young girl, especially in the rise of social media and with all the body changes that you're going through and the emotions, and it was just so easy to start to compare yourself to other girls. It almost felt more socially acceptable to kind of hate yourself, or not even hate yourself, just dull yourself down or water yourself down rather than love yourself and appreciate yourself, because confident girls were sometimes looked as self-absorbed or too much or needing to be humbled. And I feel like that was such a big fear that girls had, where it's like, I don't want to be too much, I don't want to take up too much space. I want to take up space but not too much space, because then people will take it the wrong way. And basically I at the time fell into this deep hole of just self-hatred. I felt I would always feel this way, that I would forever just hate how I looked, and that I kind of had to just live with this feeling. But by the grace of the universe, this hatred fleeted as I grew older. I no longer live with that mindset, and I'm proud to say I lead a life where I feel so grateful to be myself and in my body. I no longer try to hide myself from the world. So back to the comment that I got. Here's why self-portraits are not narcissistic, in my opinion. The girl I was in middle school would have never even thought to draw herself, let alone think she was worthy of being painted. Self-portraits are a form of self-love to me. A form of celebrating myself and appreciating the essence of who I am. It's a way of embracing both my mind and body, a way to connect with myself. I feel like, especially as women, society seems to have such a fine line into how you have to show up to the world. You could be confident, but you can't be too confident, because then you're doing too much, Then it can look like you're trying to flaunt, or you're, again, self-indulgent. I just feel like there's no good way for us to do anything. Maybe people on the outside will have opinions on this. Maybe they will think that it's conceited or self-indulgent, but I don't see it that way, because that is just simply never my intention. Intention is literally everything, especially with art. Every artist has an intention into why they make the art. I mean, even if they say they have no intention, I mean, that in in it of itself is an intention, you know? Personally, self-portraits also feel like a time capsule to me, you know? I always think, I'm like, wow, like when I'm 80 years old, it's gonna be so interesting to look back on these paintings of myself when I was in my 20s and all these experiences that I had. Like, I just think if I continue to make self-portraits throughout my life and seeing how they progress, I think that would be really interesting. And there's so many artists where you can kind of see their journey of their self-portrait and how it really changed and evolved as they got older, and the way that they saw themselves evolved. And I just think it's so cool. And I just do not subscribe to the idea that it's just for vanity. Like, I think it's so deep and meaningful and purposeful and really tells a story. This leads into my third and final reason. My final and most prevalent reason into why I paint myself is that I use my body as a vessel in which other people can see themselves through. Now, for example, think of Frida Kahlo's work. It is my belief that her paintings would have not been nearly as impactful and successful if she had used a random reference for each painting. She would always place herself as the main character in her paintings, which gave a very cohesive, familiar face to each painting, making it easier for those to understand the personal story, symbolism, and intention behind her work. Others could relate to her because they could tell that she was being vulnerable. She wasn't hiding behind a face. Instead, she was the front face of her deeply, deeply personal paintings. And that goes to say that there's nothing wrong if you don't want to put yourself in your art. You can totally be vulnerable and not put yourself in your art, you know? But there's a lot of people who, they don't like painting themselves, you know? And that is 100% okay, you know? Art is entirely subjective and flexible, and that is the beauty of it. Personally, for me, I have always gravitated towards artists that either place themselves in their work or just show some sort of vulnerability, because that is the art that speaks to me the most. Others will find solace in paintings of landscapes or of fantasy characters or simply of shapes and patterns. In every piece of art, there is a beating heart behind it. There is a hand that spent hours creating that art. And so in that, there is always a piece of the artist's personality or soul in the painting, whether they depict themselves in that painting or not. To write off an artist painting themselves as narcissistic just feels very ignorant and lacks any sort of reflection into why the artist chose to do that in the first place. I place myself in my art as an act of vulnerability and self-expression. I use my body as a vessel for my own artistic voice. It's not a matter of trying to be better than others or a way to self-indulge or for some vanity purpose. It instead is simply a vital matter of my art process and my art story. Every artist has a different reason for why they do the art they do. I believe it's important to always hear an artist out before jumping to conclusions about their character. Can you have opinions on their art? Yes, of course. And at the end of the day, that guy's gonna think what he thinks, and again, art is subjective. It's not meant to be seen one way. I'm really curious to know what your opinion on self-portraits are. Do you think it is inherently conceited? Have you ever made a self-portrait? And if so, how did it make you feel? I would love to start a discussion on this. I also am curious if other artists have thought about this or have gotten comments like this. I think it's a very interesting topic, so I would love to know your opinion. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I also hope you enjoyed this drawing that I did.